intentionally crashing an SUV into a tree with a deer strapped to it, threats over a gun sold by a deputy, and promoting a fight supervised by a deputy.
These are just a few of the allegations coming out of what can be described as a towing war in Ogama County.
In an ABC 12 investigation, our Terry Camp has been looking into what exactly is going on.
Most law enforcement agencies have a policy on which tow truck companies call to tow away a car after an accident or another incident. Now, the person who needs the tow might have a preference, but if they don't, if they have no preference, it's up to the law enforcement agency. They have a towing policy on which company to call in Ogama County, but one company says it's not being followed.
Closest proximity within the county.
But DNN Garage co-owner Jake Francisco says the county hasn't been doing that since sometime in 2019. His company, which is about 7 miles south of West Branch, is one of the bigger tow companies in the county. And he says law enforcement agencies began to use another towing company about 13 miles away in Aranac County.
Calls from the sheriff's office all but, went away completely. Oftentimes, even the following months, down to 0 calls from the sheriff's office entirely.
Francisco says the company was shunned by the sheriff's department after Trista Smith Spencer, co-owner of DNN, divorced her husband, Michael Spencer, who told his ex-wife this.
They're not going to call you. They're going to run you out of business. You'll never make it on your own employment.
Trista Smith Spencer has a 2020 assault conviction stemming from an incident involving her ex-husband. After they broke up, Michael Spencer started his own tow truck business in neighboring Aranac County. Francisco says Spencer's tow business was not properly licensed in the state. We did some checking, and it turns out Spencer did not have a license to work with law enforcement at that time. But the back of this business card of an Ogama County Sheriff deputy has Spence Towing and Recovery written on it and was handed out to people in need of a tow. Again, the Ogama County policy says the closest tow truck company should get preference, which would be rarely one in Aranac County. Officers are not permitted to recommend any particular wrecker service.
The 6 months that he towed illegally, he took the most calls from the sheriff's department out of any company in the area, so as an illegal entity, he was predominantly used by the Ogama County Sheriff's Office.
The Michigan State Police may have used Spencer's new towing business for a while before it was informed he was operating without obtaining all the necessary licensing. It released a statement saying Spence Wrecker was not on the no preference list for the MSP West Branch Post. If Spence Wrecker was ever used by MSP, it was used sparingly. Out of the towing dispute came allegations against some of the deputies. Deputy Brian Gilbert Jr., the son of current Sheriff Brian Gilbert, was investigated for allegedly participating in an insurance fraud scheme in 2018, where he had his personal SUV totaled. Francisco says Michael Spencer totaled the SUV for Gilbert while Spencer was still working for DNN.
And brought it here, strapped a deer to one of the trees, and then drove the Yukon into that deer. He had put a pillow in front of him and gauze in his mouth and intentionally wrecked this Yukon.
This is a picture of the Yukon after the crash into the dead deer and tree. A text message seems to confirm Spencer crashed the Yukon for Gilbert Jr. The state police investigation is now at the Aranac County Prosecutor's Office for review for possible criminal charges. Another deputy sold to Spencer's a department pistol in 2019 that was being replaced with a newer model. But after the divorce, the deputy, once he found out it was in Trista's possession, allegedly sent this message writing, "Listen, I want my gun back that you took. The gun is registered in my name. If it's not returned, I'll be filing it as stolen." Francisco also says another deputy wanted to set up a fight with Michael Spencer.
I was offered to have a fight out in the woods with Mike, if that's what it came down to, a chaperoned fight by one of the deputies.
The fight never happened. Sheriff Gilbert, who just won election, had no comment on the towing issue, his son's insurance fraud investigation, the gun issue, or the proposed fight. Former Sheriff Howie Hant had no comment. We cannot reach Brian Gilbert Jr. for comment, but his attorney, Dwayne Hadley, says the allegations against the deputy are baseless. County Administrator Tim Dolahanty says the county is looking to review its towing policy. We could not reach Michael Spencer for comment. A check of state records shows Spencer is now licensed to tow for law enforcement agencies. Francisco just wants his company to be treated fairly.
I still love law enforcement, but I have a new understanding of how local law enforcement can act now.
In Ogama County, Terry Camp, ABC 12 News.